This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
What are yoga pants? I can only imagine that means they're really tight. Like something like spandex. Why would they be banned at schools? Well, we'll find out 11:06 this morning at 700 WLW. About 10:52, our headlines of the week. Every Friday at 10:52, I get on the list of the best headlines from around the globe. Things that from all different media outlets. Talk to the pro-Lakota levy people right now. It's no secret that I'm not a fan of levies. It's not that I don't support schools or think that we need to fund them. Of course I do. I just am not convinced that whether it's schools or different levels of government, we're actually heading in the right direction where we spend money. And instead of just continuing to throw money at things, I want to see some solutions, new ways forward. And that's my basic opposition to levies. I have a lot of questions about how, in the case of education, we're going to go ahead and move forward. So I don't want to see any levies passed until I get some real new answers, not the same stuff. Now, Julie Shaffer is in opposition to that idea. She's from the Lakota School District and likes the idea of a levy. How are you, Julie?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. So why do you support the levy? Why are you supporting the Lakota levy?
The way school funding is structured in the state of Ohio, levies are a part of that system simply to keep up with inflation and maintain the districts that we currently have.
Okay, and you don't see it as a possibility if we don't pass a levy for Lakota keeping up with it?
When you look at right now with Lakota's revenue challenges, their revenue is going to be less in 2012 than it was in 2007 because we've had cuts in state and federal funding, and then there's also higher delinquencies and different things that are driving our revenue down. So when I look at having revenue less than it was even 5 years ago, plus the cost of living during that time going up 15%, I think that there's only so long that a district can continue to absorb those revenue challenges before they have to go to the voters and ask for additional funds to maintain the district they have.
So when you say the cost of living going up, you mean the things that the school has to provide for, their expenses of more because of the inflation?
Exactly.
But what about the people in those districts, though? I mean, they're also hit with those same rates of inflation.
Right, but again, I don't think that when we see how challenging it is for those families to manage those higher costs, I don't know how we expect the district to be able to manage that without any cost of living increases. I look at it, I kind of looked at, okay, if the district got the same cost of living increases that those on Social Security got, that we talk about on a fixed income, this levy wouldn't be necessary. So it really is just keeping up with those cost of living changes. But then again, we have to look at the fact we've also seen reductions in our other revenue sources from the state and the feds.
So let's see, if the levy this time around is 4.75 mil, is that accurate?
That's correct.
So the owner of a $100,000 home, they'd pay about $145,000 more a year. I would think that there's quite a few homes that are probably $200,000, so now you're looking at about $300 more a year.
Yep, it's a little under that. The average home value in Lakota at this point is just under $190,000. So
that's, but I mean that you understand that's a pretty big hit for the average person out there saying, listen, the economy has hit all of us pretty hard. We've got, some people that are unemployed and whatnot. I mean, take that extra $300, post taxes being paid, not your gross, but your net. That's a pretty big hit for a lot of families.
Absolutely. I do understand that and certainly appreciate that. And it's a choice of an investment. We need to define what type of school district do we want and what type of community or what type of district does this community want to invest in. And I feel we're at that point where if we continue to make reductions, I don't think that is the type of school district this community wants to put out there as their marquee when we're trying to attract new business and new families and continue to allow the businesses that are here to thrive. So it absolutely is an investment choice and a trade-off. People have to make that choice. But I'm hoping that they're going to want to maintain the district that we have and not see these additional challenging cuts that we've already seen.
But aren't there other options? I mean, it seems to be you're saying unless we pass a levy, there's no other options. The school will suffer, that it won't be as good a school system, or we pass the levy and have to spend the money. There's no other options out there?
Well, I mean, again, I think that we're taking options every day. You look at reductions that the district has already stepped forward and made. They've renegotiated teachers' contracts with pay freezes. They've increased health care costs there. They've lowered the millage. They've renegotiated all sorts of contracts. They've eliminated over 80 teaching positions. So I think there's absolutely been steps that the district has made to try to meet the public, and by lowering the millage, that's understanding that they have to absorb a piece of this challenge, but then they are asking the community to step forward and absorb a piece of the challenge as well.
What about some of the other salaries? You just hired your new superintendent. She makes $165,000 a year. She's a double dipper, and she there was thousands of dollars spent in the search for her. And I would say, I mean, that's pretty high. I mean, isn't there a way to continue to cut stuff like that to say, maybe we get somebody to do it for $140,000 or $120,000?
I mean, again, there is a lot of controversy over what's the appropriate salary there, and I look at making sure we have the best talent at the top, and I think that's an investment that we have to make sure that leadership is there. And I think if you've seen people have been discontent with the last superintendent perhaps not being as able to discuss the numbers and help people understand the financials, and they brought in a new leader who has a very strong aptitude in understanding and really digging in. And if you look at her past history, she's really been able to come up with some creative solutions. So I think if we pass this levy now, she is committed to anything she brings back. She's going to find other reductions and really delve into the financials. And I think we have a great opportunity now to give her that chance to continue to look for things to save on. But if we don't pass this levy, since we're already spending more than we're taking in, she's going to just have to kind of slash and burn the budget without giving her the time to really bring her expertise in.
I'm talking with Julie Shaffer. She's in support of the Lakota levy. Julie, my producers told me Rich Hoffman, the No Lakota levy people, he's been behind some of the the No Lakota levies in the past, is on with me right now. Is on the phone right now. Do you mind if I bring him into the conversation?
That's your choice.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure you're okay with it and give you that option. Rich Hoffman joins me now. So we got Julie Shaffer in favor of the levies and Rich Hoffman against it. How are you, Rich?
Hi, and Julie, it's good to speak with you again. I know what the cause of the problem is with the Lakota levy. It's because of the NFL lockout.
Is that it?
That's the sole problem. No, actually, I wanted to bring Julie up to speed with a meeting that the No Lakota people had last night with Superintendent Mantia, where she met with us last night. She reached across the aisle to ask us what we thought she should do about the situation. And we broke down some numbers, the same numbers you've heard us talk about, same numbers you've looked at, and I know you know what they are. And at the end of it, after a 2-hour conversation, she pretty much said, so what do you want us to do? And we said, we need to pull the levy, and you need to go back before you ever put a levy on the ballot and ask the teachers to take a cut. Ask them to get, and because here's why. The position is, and I didn't even know this till yesterday, that the average salary is $63,000, $63,727 per as an average salary at Lakota, and that's just simply too high. And we think to maintain that is that's what's causing all this trouble. And that's what we told her that we thought she should do. She said it was too late in the game to do that at this time, but that's still our position is what we believe that you guys, supporters and everybody should get together, bring that average salary down to a reasonable amount of money.
What is the average again, Rich?
$63,727.
Julie, do you think that's a reasonable salary?
I think it's a market competitive salary, and when you're competing for teachers with other markets, I don't want to be the district where we get the teachers that aren't able or can't go anywhere else. And when I look at the results that our teachers have, I think it's because we have excellent teachers. These folks, on average, have 17 years of experience. They have their master's degrees. And I think the way that we've loaded up their classrooms and that they've still gotten excellent results, these are excellent teachers that we have.
Well, every school has excellent teachers, and there's 11 districts looking for money for the same reasons. Everybody has the same problem we do. And if those teachers were to go someplace else, they're just going to jump out of the frying pan to another frying pan and another problem where they're going to have the same the same challenges. And I would think that some of the teachers at Lakota, a good majority of them, if they value what we have, and it is a great district, great parents, great community support, and just passing a levy doesn't mean you have great community support. Lakota's been great for a number of reasons, and that's a lucrative workplace. And to take a percentage cut is not a lot to ask when that's coming down the pike anyway. Let's face it. Everybody's going to have to deal with this reality of what is acceptable. The CPI index, what the teachers are making, what the community's making, is way off, and it has to come together somehow. And I would hope that the teachers union would have. I would have hoped after last time they would have stepped up and done that. The step increase cut was not enough.
Well, but if you look at now in the 5-year forecast, the next 5 years, there is only a 2% increase built in. And again, if you look at the cost of living during that time and what even our folks on Social Security that are on a fixed income, they'll see increases during that time, most likely, when the cost of living is projected to be between 10 and 15%. And our teachers in that forecast are only projected to get a 2% raise.
Actually, Social Security, it was, I think, last year or the year before, they didn't see one. It might have been both of them. They didn't get the automatic one. But
but the prior year, but when they didn't that one year, the prior year they'd gotten a 5.8% increase.
Okay.
So again, when you average it out, they had a 4.1, a 3.3. So those numbers were there. So yes, you're correct that there have been times, but over that aggregate, it still has been a 15% jump in history.
Julie, let me ask you, and I'm talking with Julie Shaffer, who's in support of the Lakota levy. Rich Hoffman's on as well, who's against it. Julie, is there a limit to what they could or shouldn't make? I mean, marketing is part of, what a salary is, what people think, the image of a person and what they're worth, their value is in the eye of the beholder. Is there a limit on what they should make? Do you see a cap, whether it's the superintendent or the teachers?
Again, to me, that's market forces at work and not what those contracts show. So I think that we do need to look at the contracts. I'm glad to know that part of the contract that was just negotiated requires that there's a committee being put together that's going to look at pay for performance and how we can reevaluate that compensation system to make sure it is viable going forward. So absolutely, I think you need to address the scales, address how pay for performance is worked in, and that's something that Lakota is working on. But in the interim, we're right here, and we're in a spending deficit right now. We can't maintain what we have with status quo without passing a levy and providing some additional revenue. And I personally don't want to be defined with a district that used to be great. I want to maintain what Lakota has.
Hang on one second, guys. Let's go ahead and take a third in here. Katie is homesick. Katie, you're a Lakota teacher?
I am a Lakota teacher, yes.
What do you think about this?
Well, I understand what they're saying. I know we're in tough times. But I just want everybody to remember that the teachers are there to teach the kids. And I feel like we've gotten an awful lot of a bad rap. You make too much money. You do this, you do that. I'm there to educate your child.
Do you understand, Katie? I mean, I don't think most people, fault you for making more money. I think if you're asking for the levy, though, and you have a $190,000 home, and you're going to, be charged an extra $300 for some of us, we're feeling that too, just like you are.
Oh, I understand. So what's I guess my consideration is if the no levy people are asking me to take a percentage cut, what's the difference in all of the teachers having to take a percentage cut or asking the residents to pay a percentage to help? It's kind of a...
Well, let's see what Rich has to say about that, Rich.
Well, that's already been done. We're already supplying 11 cents on every dollar of tax revenue from our properties. And we're at that market value where if a business wants to locate here, they're looking at the tax rates. I mean, we're talking about the commercial amount, too, and it's already unattractive. And residents moving in, it's already unattractive because of the property values. And when you take these things at an individual basis, it's difficult to say you're not worth $65,000, and that's not what we want to do. But if you look at the realistic, like I think last year, before the step increase situation, there were 60% of all the teachers got a 3% increase, and that comes out to about $2.1 million collectively. If you look at it like that, and that comes out to about 2.1. We're saving 2.8 on the busing cuts, and that's what when you're trying to balance a budget, that's the kind of cost that you have to manage. So then you have to ask, well, how far is too much? When do you say, this is what a top teacher pays? This is what a good teacher is worth. And I think the market value is establishing that through these levy disputes. For what we're doing right now, we're establishing exactly what a worth is and what we're willing to pay for it.
Hang on one second, Rich. Julie, hang on one second. I'm going to get your comment on that, but I got to get a quick break in here. It's Doc Thompson on 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. I'm talking with Julie Shaffer, who's in support of the Lakota levy, and also Rich Hoffman, who is with the No Lakota levy. Julie, I got a couple emails that I want to get your take on. People sent them to me. When did our teachers start becoming not teachers and in charge of creating businesses and home cells? Teach our kids, rip us off, retire, and suck off us even more. You're not a company, and that's what they think of themselves as anymore. What would you say to that?
Again, I think teachers are a valuable part of the education system, and I hope that we are still a community that wants to invest in our community, defining our community, and the education of our youth. I totally get not wanting to pay tax dollars for able-bodied adults, but I certainly am willing to make an investment in the education of our community's children, and a levy dollar is going to stay 100% here. I also want to respond to Rich's math and say that, first, it's not 11 cents per dollar. It would actually be, if the levy passed, it would be 1.1 cent per dollar. And also look at the premise of, do we really want to be the school district that's going to pay less than any other business? And if you look at some businesses that are highly successful, putting out a great product at a low cost, like, say, a Costco or a Trader Joe's that, has to have high-quality service but puts out a low-cost product, one of the ways they do that is actually they pay a premium to their employees because they feel like that gets them the best talent that can serve at the highest level. And while Lakota doesn't do that, I certainly want them to have a competitive pay structure.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is a great point, and we're making some good progress here. Tell you what, hang on one second. I have to get the news, and then I'll have a longer segment that I can take some more of your thoughts on. Rich, hang on as well, and we'll also get some calls at 513-749-7800, the big one on pound 700 AT&T. I have a couple really good emails to get to as well. It's Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. To levy or not to levy? That is the question. It's certainly the question in Lakota. We got Rich Hoffman with No Lakota levy and Julie Shaffer with the pro Lakota levy people. When last we left, I think, Rich, you were going to comment on Julie's, what she had to say, but I'll share a couple of quick emails with you guys. And they're in opposition. John asked the question, when does it stop? If it's about the kids, then money shouldn't matter. This is all about the money, nothing more, nothing less. When does it stop? And Alan asks, okay, Rich, what is the average salary then? What should it be? I asked Julie that question. What do you think is reasonable?
What I told Superintendent Mantilla last night is the average salary should reside between $45,000 and $65,000 a year. $65,000 should be somewhat of a cap, and you can go beyond that if you have an exceptional teacher that you've assessed. And Lakota is developing ways to figure out who is exceptional and who's not. But as far as schedule increases, it should be within that range. And if it exceeds that, then you're going beyond your budget.
No, at some point, though, Rich, I mean, cost of living goes up. I mean,
sure.
What people made, years ago, you used to be able to buy a car brand new for $2,000. So would there be some system in place where they could get a raise down the road?
Right, but a snapshot, well, your raises would be within that range. I mean, you have to decide what the value of something is if you're going to employ them. And the range for what a teacher should be in that range.
What do you think, Julie?
Again, I think it needs to be market competitive, and these folks have their master's degree. When you look at folks with 17 years of experience in their master's degree, I think saying that your average should be down at the 45 range is not going to give us the best and brightest in to educate the next generation, and that's what I want to see. I want to attract and retain the best and the brightest because I think this investment's worth it. And in addressing that, when does it stop? To me, a levy, it's not, well, it is increasing the actual dollars paid out. It's simply a cost of living increase. Somebody was blogging one day and they're like, my taxes have gone up 25%. Well, I looked, and during that same time period, the cost of living had gone up 40%. So in the dollar for dollar terms, that's what a levy is. It's simply an adjustment for a cost of living.
I had a guy just called in and said that he moved to Westchester in 2000. Since then, his property taxes have doubled.
Mm-hmm.
I would struggle to see that. The Pulse Journal actually published an article last year saying that taxes on a $100,000 home had gone up by 10% in 10 years. So again, that certainly was a different reporting than what you're stating. So,
Rich, you got a comment on that?
Well, I have a lot of comments on this. Yeah, first of all, $45,000 a year would not be what you'd have the starting teacher. I mean, the starting teacher, that's what you bring them in at. When you have your master's degree and you have your years of experience, you're 15, you're 20 years of experience, $65,000 is about where it should be. As of today, going forward, you have to watch the CPI index, and the amount of money we pay for these costs have to reflect what the community is going through. And the CPI index is that. If it's flatlined, then they also have to flatline. If you're looking at a 2% increase for them, guaranteed by contract, and the rest of the community isn't getting that, then how's the taxpayer supposed to fund that? How's that supposed to continue?
They're not getting that 2%. Right now, they have agreed to a flat raise. And again, if you look at the Consumer Price Index on wages, the community is not flatlined. In 2008, there was a blip down, but since then, the Consumer Price Index on wages has continued to have increases in wages. So that math isn't working for me.
Hang on 1 second. John's saying your math isn't working. John, you say Julie's numbers are off?
Yes, sir, I do. This also takes us back to the issue 2 argument. The bottom line is the CPI over the last decade in our county is hovering about 1.8%, and our public employees have been getting somewhere about 5.4% across the board. Now, this is across sectors, and what's more important that people need to understand is that the salary that she's talking about, the wages, we're not including benefits and all those other things. Public employees, on average, get about 87 cents a dollar in addition to their compensation and benefits.
So what do you think about that, Julie?
Again, I don't have the numbers he's looking at. He's not looking at mine. I still go back to right now we are in a contract that is going to hold us for the next 3 years that includes a salary freeze for our teachers, increased co-share pays and costs on their health care. And we have an opportunity. This is our choice as a community to define what we're going to look at as our school district going forward.
Well, Julie, what about this? Hang on one second, Rich. I just want to bring up one point that the caller just had. What about that? We're talking primarily salaries here. If you're talking, about step increases in salaries, what about their retirement to that? We know that that's, one of the cornerstones of the problem with funding all kinds of public sector jobs.
Well, I'm glad to see that the legislature, right now, they dictate what the district must pay into a pension plan, and they're actually looking at lowering what the district's responsibility will be to pay for pension plans, and the employees are going to be making up a greater share of that, is my understanding, going forward. So, again, I think we need to continue to monitor that at the state level and make sure that they are not increasing Lakota's share and requirements that they pay into any pension plan so that, again, the districts can afford to pay their share.
What were you going to say, Rich?
Well, I was going to say a whole bunch of things. What do you think the average person in Westchester is making, Julie? I mean, I'd like to know what you think.
According to the district profile report or the CUP report that's on the ODE, they show that in 2008, which is the last day they have those numbers, the average person made $78,555. In
Westchester?
And that's what it's showing.
The median income for a household per household is $90-some thousand. If you divide that by 2 people, that's about $50,000. So we're talking about different numbers here. You're looking at numbers and you look at them one way. I'm looking at numbers and seeing them another way. The bottom line of this discussion and what we're at, the precipice that we exist on at this moment, what we're deciding, what is the value? What is the market value going to determine these professions are worth? And I would say that we're at that moment, and we have to make a hard decision. We told them last night that you should go back to the teachers union, and if they don't want to take a cut, you shouldn't come to the community and ask for it, because that will determine how willing they are to work with the community.
Julie, we got a call. I think you're spot on here. You got Jeff in Dayton. You support what Julie's saying?
I sure do. Julie, I'm so proud of you. In all fairness, I'm married to a teacher in the district comparable to Lakota. I drive a grocery truck, and I make mid-40s. I think a teacher with a bachelor's degree or a master's and about 12 years that my wife has ought to make a whole lot more than that.
What do you think, Joel?
again, I value teachers highly. I think they are critical to the future of our country, and I am willing to make that investment to pay teachers well. It's again, it goes back to me it's a choice. Our community has a choice right now of what they want to define their school district. We're not going to fix and change how teachers are paid in Lakota, and I'm not willing to put us out there as the test pilot to say, I'm going to allow our district and our community to decline while we argue about what teacher salaries should or shouldn't be. We have a choice right now. Do we want to maintain the district we have, the excellent teachers we have, and continue to move forward, or do we want to continue to see our district cut and dismantled? Because that, to me, like Rich said, Dr. Mantia said, that water's over that bridge. We're in a contract. We're moving forward. What's it going to look like when we place that vote on November 8th?
Julie, are you running for school board?
I have thrown my hat in the ring. I'm not going to stand by and throw darts at the problem, but I want to be part of the solution.
All right. Well, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much. I started with you. I'm going to go ahead and give Rich Hoffman one last thing to say to give him a minute or two. Sir? Richard,
I'm there. Yes. I'm just listening to all the banner here. This is really to suggest that $65,000 a year is not very much. I just don't know where these folks get their idea of what value is. That's a lot of money. And when you're employing 2,000 people, that's a lot of money when they're all making that level of money. This really comes down to a thing. I think there's a lot of emotional issues that get attached to this. How much do we expect a teacher to do? What is their role? How important are they in society? That if you listen to them, they're all important. They're the centerpiece. But yet, I can't help but think back on the 2008 strike when they were willing to walk off the job as soon as we passed the levy, and to drive up wages because they wanted some of the money that was in surplus. And they've behaved like that for over a decade, and that's put us into this financial crisis.
All right. Well, Rich, I appreciate you joining me, sir. Thank you so much for all the information. And I'm going to get to a bunch of calls. There's a lot of people want to comment. You've heard both sides. Evan sent me an email. He said, she is way off base. My wife and I combined make around $90,000, and we're doing better than most of our neighbors. He said, Rich is right with his numbers. What do you think? Your calls next on the big one, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. We got Willie on the air at 12:06 today. He's going to talk more about those murders in Indiana. That's the big show with Bill Cunningham coming up, 700 WLW. Quick email and then more of your calls. Bill checked in. He said, Doc, the pro-levy people, the pro-levy supporters were quoting average income numbers. The anti-levy supporters were quoting median income numbers. The extremely wealthy are pulling up the average numbers, so the numbers do not accurately reflect reality. Let's go to Grant now. Grant, you're on 700 WLW.
Hi, Doc. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
I'm kind of in an interesting position. I don't have a skin in the race. I live in northern Kentucky and work down at Northern Kentucky University. Excuse me. So I'm an educator. I understand what they're going through, and I think all educators are underpaid, but we also have to realize that what the market forces are doing. I have a PhD. I'm a chemist, have worked here for 5 years, and so in addition to my 6 years of my PhD training, I have a little bit of experience, but I'm only making $65,000 a year. And at what point is it going to stop? The educators in the college system, we aren't guaranteed a raise every year. And so, we have to look at the whole picture. It's not just one piece.
That's a good point. And, part of the other problem, Grant, is that we're talking about public versus private. That you can't negate that part of it. So, if I go out and I work in the private sector and I say I'm either going to develop skills or get education or a combination of them that make me very, very valuable, the sky's the limit. If someone says, Doc, you're worth $10 billion, or they say you're worth $1.92, well, that's what it is. But when you get in that public sector, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. I appreciate your comments. So, listen, I got a whole bunch of people that want to comment. I'm going to get to them. I'm going to do our headlines of the week coming up next, and then more of your calls and emails on to levy or not to levy. 700 WLW. The doctor's on 700 WLW. Very interesting hour last hour. A lot of people making excellent points and debating back and forth. Levy or not to levy? If you would like to hear the last hour, you can do so via podcast at 700WLW.com. It's probably worth it. We had the pro-Lakota levy people on, the anti-Lakota levy people on. They all made excellent points. Go back and listen to it and decide for yourself. Who do you think is spot on and not? Now, if you'd like to chime in, we'll get you in, 513-749-7800, the big one, or pound 700 on AT&T. Also go through some of my email. But there's a lot of people that's been holding, and I promised I will get to you if you've been on hold. Just stay put. We'll go to him now. Steve, how are you?
Very good. Can I give you a couple points on why I'll never vote for the levy?
Yes, sir.
They do realize that nobody's moving into any of these houses. I mean, the kids that are there have been there, and now they're graduating, and there's nobody moving in. But yet they want to continue to build schools. And when they build the schools, they have schools on 22 acres of property that they could build on, but no, they want to buy more property in more locations when it's really not even needed.
Are you in the district?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been there?
10 years.
Do you think the numbers were accurate about the amount that the property tax have gone up?
I tell you the truth, I am not sure.
Okay. No, I ask it out there, whatever. I know I'm in Loveland, and my property taxes are outrageous. I got to be honest, I forgot to factor that in when I was moving back to Ohio, how high the property taxes are for schools, or how high they can be. So I'm like, all right, I'll move back. I have about this much to spend on a house. And I was like, oh, my golly, I forgot about the taxes. Matt Springboro, you're on 700 WLW.
How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing well. Thanks for holding.
Good. I listened to the last hour. Both people you had on there earlier did make some good points, and I do believe that as far as getting the best teachers in, as far as getting the best education, you have to pay for it. If the school said we're going to pay only $19,000 per teacher, obviously the school's curriculum's going to suffer, and the kids are going to suffer as far as that goes. And the taxes, wherever you live at. I'm in Springboro, and obviously my taxes are higher in Springboro than they are in other areas, but I don't mind paying the taxes for the school. But what I do have a problem with is when the levy does not pass, they want to hold things hostage, whether it be football or sports or busing or anything like that. And if I go out and spend too much money this week and I can't go into work Monday morning and tell my boss I need more money because I don't know how to budget my money right now. And that's where I have an issue with.
And you can't hold him hostage and say, well, I'm just not going to come to work or whatever. He'd be, all right, I'll get somebody else.
Yeah, I went and bought a brand new $60,000 Cadillac, and I go to work and tell my boss I need a raise to pay for it. It's just not going to work.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
And I just hear all it. I know how much money me and my wife are going to bring in this year, and we budget our money accordingly, and that's what the schools need to do. And you never hear once whenever they cut busing to say, well, we're just going to pass a $300,000 levy this year for busing at sports. That levy would pass. But that's not what they throw in there. They throw everything else under the sun in there in the levy, and I think the taxpayers as a whole is just fed up with all the levies.
I'll tell you what, I agree with you, and I think a lot of people would as well, about them not realizing that, number one, all of us are in it together, and number two, there's a lot of other taxes we have to pay. It's not just the schools. We have all of these people coming at us all the time at taxes. I think most people want good schools. Most people are willing to pay for services, police, fire, teachers, roads, whatever, the things the government is supposed to do. I include myself in that. I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to pay more taxes to pay off the national debt. I'm willing to. But I am not willing to pay 1 cent more. I will fight every levy and tax increase across the board, period, until I see a new system. Because I'm just throwing my money away. Why would I be willing to tax myself more, whether it's to pay off the national debt or this, to fund the schools or whatever, when I recognize the systems are broken, that I'm just going to be throwing my money away? You come with the plan. You lay it all out for me, and I'll do what I have to do to help out. I will pay more. I will accept that. But it has to be a plan. It's not just give us more money. All right, a bunch of people still holding. Got Gus in Liberty Township.
Hey, Doc.
Hey there.
Part of the school funding issue, it's what we're getting from the state. Lakota is considered a rich district, higher average income, and we don't have the correct mix of population, African-American and Hispanic, compared to other districts. So Lakota is the 7th largest district in the state. Northwest up in Columbus is the 8th largest district. That part of the school funding, Lakota gets about $2 million, and Northwest gets about $15 million. So because we don't get that, extra $10 or $15 million, we have to go to a school levy to make up those dollars.
Well, and there's
funding is where the problem is.
Right, and there's another flaw with the whole funding issue and the way we do it in the state anyways, is that it's, of course, redistributed. On one hand, you say if you want a good local school district and you want to build an extra gymnasium or a better practice field or whatever it is, fine, you can tax yourself more. But we're also going to redistribute it. So on one hand, you're saying it's up to you to build that great local school district to put your money in. Okay, great. But we also want to shuffle the money around. Either you come at it completely funded by the state where they distribute the money evenly, or you let my tax dollars solely go to my district, and that's a problem. Josh has been holding as well. Josh in Loveland.
Hey, Doc, how's it going?
Well, sir, thank you.
Well, I was listening to Richard and the other lady earlier, and both sides are making great points, but my argument would be that these teachers know that what the average salary would be when they get into their field of work, and they're talking about master's degree and being there for 15 years. Well, what happens if they're there for 30 years? Are they making $85 a year? I mean,
no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, what happens if you're there longer? Now, I will say in their defense, when it comes to teachers, the pressure is put on them to get, higher and higher degrees to continue to go back to school. It's not a bad thing. But do you really need a master's degree to teach kindergarten? Well, they've got their doctorate in early childhood. You don't need that for kindergarten. I'm sorry. So let's be realistic about it. Marty, thanks for holding. We'll get to George next. Marty, how are you?
All right. I just wanted to say, West Claremont, they had on their levy like a $10.5 million levy. They got 13,000 kids that go to school from K through 12. The levy failed. All they had to do, and now they're holding the kids hostage with the buses and pay to play and all that stuff. All they had to do is go back to it and charge each kid, each student that goes to school there, break it down, say $100 operating expense. I think the people using the schools should have to bear the burden. My kids go to school there, I have
so
no
the people whose kids maybe don't have kids shouldn't have to pay.
They shouldn't have to pay that extra burden. They should have to pay to keep the upkeep of them school, because people didn't move here because of the malls. They moved here because of the schools. So they should have to pay, to keep the upkeep of them schools and all that stuff. But every time you turn around, they want a new operating expense. What they do, they ask for a levy, and you pass a levy, and they take that money and spend it on new schools instead of what they said they were going to do. And now they don't have the money to operate these schools, and they want to hold your kids hostage.
There's the other debate, too, is I don't have kids in school. Why should I have to pay? And there's something to be said for that. There's a good argument to be made. On one hand, you don't have kids in school, and you've never had kids in school. Why do you have to pay? Well, because you're right. Schools add to the community. They add to development coming into the community. Businesses will develop there because they say, you've got better school systems, and sometimes you get lower taxes because of that. So, yeah, they do help the community. But if you don't have kids, you're not getting the same resources from your tax dollars that your neighbor is that has 5 kids. Or if you have 1 kid versus somebody who has 12 kids. So maybe there's got to be some balance that all taxpayers in an area will pay for the basic school, platform, whatever. And if you have kids there, maybe you pay more. Is there something to be said for that? Let's go back to the phones. George in Lebanon, thanks for holding.
I have the one issue here, and I listened to Jill talk about numbers from 2008.
Julie that we had on?
Julie, yeah, Julie. And I listened to Rich talk, and I think Rich is a little more on than she is. First of all, since 2008, foreclosure rates are going up everywhere, including in their district. The people they keep coming to for the money, unfortunately, they're not getting any increases. They're taking pay cuts, losing hours. A lot of them have lost jobs. 3-year-old numbers aren't. Our economy has not gotten better in three years. It's gotten worse. They keep going to the people who are suffering and saying, we don't want to suffer. I'm sorry, pay us. We need that cost of living increases. While these people that you're going to can barely pay their mortgage or losing their houses, they are not in touch with reality. Things are tough out there. And that's the problem with the schools. They keep asking for money, saying we need it for the children, but yet when you see the money going to the school system, nothing's done for the kids.
So if you didn't have to pay more and I didn't have to pay more, if there was no levy and we don't see an increased amount of money taken from us for the schools, if there was no levy passed, at that point, the teachers would not get a raise, but they would be in the same boat that we are, right? There would be no additional taxes and there would be no raise.
Well, unfortunately,
but if they get the levy, they get a raise, we get a decrease in what we have.
Right. In other words, we're the ones paying them, and they don't understand that you cannot keep asking the group of people to pay for everything so you all can have your lifestyle the way you want it, while their lifestyle is on the decrease. They want to maintain theirs or raise it. It doesn't work that way. I understood the professor saying he only made $65,000 a year at the university. Hey, a lot of people aren't making that now, and if you can make more money being a chemist, go do it. No one told you to teach. That's the problem. They got into teaching. I've got a master's degree. Well, unfortunately, if you got a master's in teaching and only pays $60,000 a year or $65,000, that's it. If you wanted to make more, maybe you got a master's in something else. You chose it.
If we're all in it together, then if most of us are not getting a raise, then probably the teachers shouldn't get a raise either. I got an email from, it doesn't say, it's just a voice text message. It says, Doc, I don't hear anyone making the point that they are getting $60,000 a year range for only working 9 months a year, plus the holidays. I mean, forget their retirement and all of that stuff, but it is $60,000 a year for working 9 months a year. It's actually a little more than 9 months, but they do get the holidays off as well. Yeah, you have to factor that in. There's at least a month or so that those teachers or people that are off during the summer because they work for the school district could get another job. There is at least a month, so you got 4 more weeks. Because they'll tell you they have other extra stuff. When the kids go home, they still have a week or two of work. They go back a little bit early. They have some other things they have to do. So it's at least a month that they have off that they could get another job. That's a good point. More of your calls and emails coming up next on The Big One. 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on The Big One, 700 WLW. I don't know if you have had a chance to catch the restaurants reviews we've been doing. It's primarily me, Slotty, and Tracy. Sometimes we have some pinch hitters in there. But they're all on the blog at 700WLW.com. We go to local restaurants and sample the fare and let you know how they are. We're honest. We lay out what we really thought about the restaurant. But so far, we've had all good experiences. That may not be the case down the road. We have a new one up. We just did. It's at the blog at 700WLW.com. I may discuss it with Mo at the bottom of the hour. Back to some calls, though. Rick, Hyde Park, you're on the air.
Hey, Doc, how you doing?
How you doing?
I just wanted to call and say I heard you say you weren't going to vote for any levies across the board. I just hope you reconsider and you'll vote for the senior service levy here in Hamilton County, because I run a Meals on Wheels program out of Dupree, and we touch the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people in Hamilton County, and that's one levy I would vote for.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not in Hamilton County, so I wouldn't be able to vote for it anyway, but I'm
sure you got one in Warren or Butler.
Yeah, well, I'm in Claremont, but I understand what you're saying. And no, there are good things. I mean, heck, the schools are good, Rick. The problem is we've got to obviously cut out any of the waste, the graft, the corruption, and redirect. We need a new system. So
I agree with you 100%. The educational system's been broke since probably the 40s or 50s. It just doesn't work.
What happens is we're not prioritizing some of this stuff. So you may have something. Listen, I have the utmost respect for seniors. I think that is one of the biggest wasted, the biggest waste that we have in our society. A resource that is being wasted. That seniors, we ship them off to homes. You go visit grandma once a year or something around the holiday or on a birthday, and that's it. Instead of having them in our home, putting their wealth of knowledge and experience to work. And I certainly think they should be taken care of, especially if they cannot truly take care of themselves. But we've got to prioritize. And the only way to truly do that is to get rid of these sacred cows. These sacred cows that we've got to be able to collectively bargain, all of this rigid talk, instead of saying, let's be reasonable. Let's pay people what they're worth. Let's make it possible so people can make fortunes if they are truly worth it, even in the public sector. But in order to do that, we need more control. And we also need to ask ourselves, what is the role of society and government? What is it we should provide for? Seniors who truly cannot provide for themselves, absolutely. But should we be funding pre-K or Head Start? Glorified babysitting? That's all it is. Redistributed wealth so somebody gets their daycare paid for, essentially, or public broadcasting, or any of these other things. Is that really the role? Linda on a cell, thanks for holding.
Hi, Doc.
How you doing?
I would like to say that in Butler County, I think every school district just negotiated for a 3-year teacher pay freeze. And so any levies that are passed would not go to the teacher's salaries.
Well, most of the levies passed anyways will lay out if they're going to teachers or building, construction or maintenance or whatever. I know a lot of them have taken those freezes, and I've complimented them for that because right now we don't have it, Linda. And
did you know that in Ohio it's been found to be unconstitutional
years ago
for levies to even fund school districts? So why aren't our lawmakers coming up with a new method?
Well, and there it goes again, Linda. You're talking about a lack of leadership. We've been having some of these same arguments. You're right, for decades. We lost a federal lawsuit, unconstitutional, to fund schools with property taxes, and it just continues.
1993.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years ago.
And still, it just rolls on instead of somebody, at the top taking charge and saying, all right, guys, we need a new plan. Linda, I think this is the reason I talk about doing the online stuff. I think this is a moment when we're having such contentious debates and we know it's broken and we know we're slipping in the world, competitiveness scale and stuff, for us to say, okay, let's take the whole thing. We'll get some people together with some good ideas over here. We'll continue to do what we're doing until we come up with the right plan, and then we'll slowly implement it over the course of 5, 10, whatever years, so you don't pull the rug out from any or anybody.
Right. And I have another thing to say. Mm-hmm. The state of Ohio requires teachers to get, public school teachers, to get a master's degree. So, after so many years.
That's so ridiculous.
There will be a kindergarten teacher who has a master's degree.
Come on, Linda. You don't need a master's degree to teach kindergarten, do you?
Well, I don't know. I didn't teach kindergarten. I taught Spanish and English, and I still teach. I retired, and I still teach part-time at a local university.
But you wouldn't think that's about right. We're kidding.
No,
right? It's nice.
No, I think that it's very important to keep up to date with your education, no matter what your field is that you're teaching in, because there's always something new that's going on.
Sure. And I know, continuing education. How about this, Linda? How about, as part of my idea that we change schools, that we put all of the materials online so parents can see, the curriculums from all over the state, everything's available. We can have videos online of teachers teaching subjects, all of this stuff. My idea that we could do a lot of it online now and get rid of some of the brick and mortar schools, downsize them, whatever. But we also online put resources for continuing education for teachers and make it part of your compensation. You can go there and continue to learn.
Oh yeah, there are programs like that already. I know quite a few fellow teachers who did that.
Yeah, we just make it as part of the entire system. See, Linda, and that's good for the teachers. You're getting out there. You don't have to put out the money for it. You could learn from any number of resources. That's incredibly valuable. So it benefits us, the people who have kids in schools and the citizens of a particular school district. It benefits the teachers because you're getting added compensation. If we do it right and structure it right, maybe you can get credit for it. So you're also essentially going to school, or at least part of it, for free. That's a hell of a compensation. We benefit because you're learning more, the kids are learning more, you're keeping up to date. It saves a lot of money. We're getting better products that way for less money. How do you argue with that? It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW.